United States Government and the U.S. Department of State, Margaret A. Cargill Foundation, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and our creative content partner, the National Geographic Society, for their generous support in making this event possible. Please put your cell phones on silent mode. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Director General of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, Ms. Inga Anderson.
I think we all know when we're in presence of something larger than ourselves. That hush that sets in when we see the sunrise. The awe when we see the 1,000 stars in the sky at night. We know that we are connected to something more deeper than just the physical. We know that there is a power greater than just the nature and the science. And what we are trying to do today is to explore that field with those who live in that world, who walk in that world, who understand and interpret it to us from their fields and their faiths. We decided to have this as a last high-level dialogue, to set us and to ground us, as many of us are beginning to go into other elements of the Congress. You may recall that we've had a dialogue on youth. We've had a dialogue on conservation finance. We've had one on oceans. We've had one on climate change. And we've had one on illegal wildlife trade. But how fitting that the last one will explore spirituality and faith. Because we know that if we continue to treat environmental action as largely a scientific and geopolitical affair, we will have overlooked that strength, that inner strength that so many people carry of faith, of spirituality, of belief, of values, of ethics, of morality that grounds us to what we do. And we will otherwise lose sight of those values which have to guide us, which do guide us as we seek to inspire humanity's response to the environmental crisis. So this high-level dialogue aims to explore the varied ways in which religion and spiritual beliefs and values inform how we interact with and make decisions about the environment and the future of this planet. We hope that this will be the beginning for our union, our movement, our IUCN, to take some additional important steps at this Congress to ensure a concrete move from inspiration to action. At this point, I'd like to introduce two people. First, allow me to introduce Dr. Paulani Kanakaole Kanahela, who will do a traditional invitation for us. But let me just mention Dr. Paulani, who has retired from the University of Hawaii and the community college system in 2013, but who has more than 40 years of service here in beautiful, beautiful Hawaii. She's also an accomplished hula dancer and can interpret the world of nature to the world of the people. She is a past president of the Edith Kanakaole Foundation and has had long leadership in that foundation. We are very grateful to you, Dr. Paulani, for being with us. Allow me also to introduce our moderator for this session, and that is Sally Rani. Sally Rani is a co-founder and president of the American Renewable Energy Institute, RI. And she's also a co-founder and president of the Araday Summit, and co-founder of the International Women's Earth and Climate Action Network, We Can. She serves as a patron of nature to IUCN, and she's the CEO of Stillwater Preservation LLC, which is a wetland mitigation banking company. Let me allow you to give it up for, first, the traditional blessing from Dr. Paulani. Over to you, Dr. Paulani.
This is going to be an extremely rich conversation and a diverse conversation. We have amazing individuals that have spent much of their life in their religious and spiritual traditions, which they're going to share with us as they have worked with the environment and with conservation. So without too much ado, I would like to have all the panelists please come forward and take your seats where they are assigned. Please. And we have lays, is that correct? We have lays. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do this correctly, excuse me.
That's all right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please be seated. So, we're in league with great forces here. And I am delighted to introduce our first speaker. And he's substituting for Cardinal Peter Dirksen, who is the president of the Pontifical Council of Justice and Peace at the Vatican. Father Robert Stark from the Catholic Diocese of Hawaii and the Office for Social Ministry, and he will be introducing his partner in the work that they have been doing here in Hawaii, carrying forward a lot of the work in practical application on the ground from the Pope's encyclical. Please welcome Father Robert Stark.
Aloha kako. On behalf of Cardinal Peter Turkson, we are very grateful and humbled to be here with you. All of you who have dedicated your lives to saving this planet, our common home. We are here this afternoon in this beautiful place we call Hawaii to focus on the connections between spirituality and conservation. Pope Francis clearly connected spirituality with conservation in his recent encyclical Laudato Si. As many of you might know, Laudato Si are the first words of the song prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And in Latin it means, "Praise be to you, God, for the gift of all of creation." In Laudato Si, Pope Francis urged all of us to make radical changes in the way we protect this precious gift by not only hearing the cry of the earth, but also the cry of the poor. Last week, Pope Francis released a video message during the World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. And Cardinal Turkson wanted us to share this 90-second video with you now. And so let us hear that message.
Creyentes y no creyentes, estamos de acuerdo en que la tierra es una herencia común cuyos frutos deben beneficiar a todos. Sin embargo, ¿qué pasa en el mundo donde vivimos? La relación entre la pobreza y la fragilidad del planeta requiere otro modo de ejercer la economía y el progreso, concibiendo un nuevo estilo de vida. Porque necesitamos una conversión que nos una a todos, liberarnos de la esclavitud del consumismo, Y este mes te hago una petición especial, que cuidemos de la creación recibida como un don que hay que cultivar y proteger para las generaciones futuras. Cuidar la casa común.
This message is a good example of the ecological spirituality outlined in Laudato Si. And that spirituality focuses on connecting the cry of the earth with the cry of the poor. But Laudato Si is a living document. It is meant to be lived. And so Cardinal Turkson wanted us to share with you some stories about how this ecological spirituality is actually being lived right here on the ground in Hawaii. Bob Agras is a colleague whose life's work has been walking alongside communities who are struggling to create more sustainable and Aina-based approaches to a better life for all in the face of socio-economic and environmental injustice. So I'd like to ask Bob to come up and talk story with us this afternoon.
Aloha kako. Mahalo for the chance to be with you today. One of the things that resonates so loudly for me is that connection that Pope Francis is making between the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. It's actually very haunting for me. And one of the things that I wanted to do was share a story with one of the groups that we work with. Hoa Aina o Makaha is a story about just that. It's about a plot of land, once barren and forgotten, belonging to the Catholic parish out in Waianae on this island. A former Italian priest who initially worked in the Philippines and Hawaii, Gigi, and then a nun, Sister Anne, both of whom were motivated by their Christian faith to heal, restore, and protect this land. So for them, it was about the land and the children of a community that has faced deep social and economic challenges that have persisted over generations. Many grassroots leaders and community and faith-based partners work together with them to join with the hands, hearts, and spirit of thousands of children to build and nurture a farm over the past 30 plus years. Now more than 600 children from Mahakaha Elementary School work on and experience Aina, the land, on a daily basis. They maintain the farm, they learn about and practice conservation, they grow and connect with food, and they care for farm animals and fish and bees. They learn about and reflect on indigenous ways of knowing how to be with Aina. They reflect on peace in a peace garden that they themselves built. And they act in solidarity with the poor and most vulnerable in their community and around the world. Just recently, they reached out with letters and donations that they gave and gathered to show their support for the children of the Lumad, the indigenous farming communities in Mindanao and the Philippines, who have witnessed killings and have been driven off of their ancestral lands, victims of extractive mining. The farm has now touched the lives of thousands of children over generations. Parents and grandparents who have been part of this special place now make sure they bring their children and grandchildren to experience a deep spirituality that comes from turning hands to the soil, to being connected to Aina, to each other and to their community. This response to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor is also generating opportunities for sustainable development. As them being part of a network of community-based, Aina-based youth-led initiatives like Ka'ala Farms and Mao Organic Farms, in partnership with the community college there and the University of West Oahu, young people, kindergarten through college, now have what they call an education to workforce ROI, a channel of that is supported by what Mao Organic Farms describes as edu-prizes, educational enterprises around indigenized agricultural and educational opportunities that bring educational and economic hope for those who are without in the community, especially unemployed youth. The farm is also a very sacred space for other youth and the broader community to experience God through connection with Aina. They hold Aina retreats. There at the farm. It's a chance to reflect on and begin to shape ways to practice and live Laudato Si. They have Laudato Si reflection stations all over the farm that serve to inspire the next generation of people who are gratefully caring for this gift of creation that God has given us. There are similar spaces across Hawaii that are offering these Aina retreats, places like Waipa Foundation on Kauai and Palilio Kohala on the island of Hawaii. The story of this land, of these children, speak to Francis's call for the need for an integrated vision, for integral ecology, that the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are connected. Seeing the vulnerability of the earth and the poor in our own vulnerabilities, that shared vulnerability, can help forge a deep sense of humble interdependence and reciprocity that inspires our transformation to a new way of living, as Pope Francis puts it, to a new way of being in this world. Laudato Si also speaks to the need for a more intimate relationship with nature and with creation. Gigi reminds the kids every single day to make sure that they say goodnight to the plants. Something as simple as that, or connecting to a tomato plant that might be growing on your apartment building, can lift up the awe, the wonder, the joy that St. Francis demonstrated for us. Simple, innocent, and grateful experiences of creation that cautions us against holding dominion over the earth and being Lord man. Lastly, the focus of these stories on the children reminds us that, nurtured by the wisdom passed on from Kupuna, from our elders, young people will bring their own gifts and capacity to make significant contributions to this ethical and spiritual journey that we are all on. Pope Francis pushes on this by what he calls intergenerational justice. The fact that we must continuously ask ourselves the question, what kind of world do we want to leave to those who come after us, to the children who are now growing up? I don't think there's any better example of this agency of young people than the eloquent articulation of the connection between spirituality and conservation in yesterday's Honolulu Star Advertiser that was written by 2 Kauai students who are part of Kupu. As Kanaka Maoli, they reminded us that our connection to nature is spiritually and physically a living connection to the past, present, and future, that we are an integral part of the earth, and the earth is an integral part of us. With that kind of profound insight from our young people, I think we should have great hope in them and our prospects for the future. We'd like to close with Pope Francis's prayer.
As we all know, when you create a document, there are many hands that create a document. But in Laudato Si, Pope Francis literally wrote 2 prayers personally, and he placed them at the end of the document. We'd like to close with the final prayers of the final words of the second prayer, a prayer in union with creation. The poor and the earth are crying out. O Lord, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Praise be to you, Laudato Si. Amen.
By Pope Francis, and he came out of the papal offices and into the arms of the people, and he inspired, I think, anyone who cares about creation, cares about the environment, cares about humanity. He inspired all of us. And the timing of that encyclical was before the climate negotiations in Paris. And I can tell you, because I was there, it made a real difference. So I just wanted to express that it's not what religion he is, it's the humanity that he is that made the difference. And our next speaker is Sergio Bergman, who is a rabbi with a very unusual combination of education. He has undergraduate in pharmacy and biochemistry, and he has an MA in education from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. And he is also the Minister of Environment for Argentina. So please welcome Rabbi Sergio Bergman.
Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum, Om Shanti, La Paz para todos vosotros. I'm sorry about my poor English, and I need to express philosophical points, and I change now, right now, to Spanish. Sorry. No, perdón. Como me presentaban, tenemos solo unos 7 minutos. Nunca había un referente religioso con un micrófono que pueda cumplir con esa premisa. Pero necesito 1 minuto para poder formalizar desde mi lugar de Ministro de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sustentable de la República Argentina, que este evento nos permite volver a esta familia, y la Argentina va a volver a incorporarse a la IUCN, a la Unión Internacional, un lugar donde muchos de nuestros científicos y referentes trabajaron todos estos años, y donde finalmente la Argentina asume tener un Ministerio de Ambiente y asumir con ustedes el trabajo global de una agenda que nos pertenece a todos. Esta decisión viene de la mano del coraje y el valor que ustedes tuvieron de incluir en una conversación de este nivel la combinación de espiritualidad y conservación. Y creo que tenemos todos nosotros mucho para decir y aportar, pero fundamentalmente quisiera hacerlo desde mi testimonio personal. Jorge Bergoglio, hoy el Papa Francisco, es mi rabino por elección. Él me guió en la Argentina en tomar esta decisión de cómo migrar de la referencia social y religiosa a la política pública. Y sentirnos todos hoy reconocidos, como recién nuestros hermanos católicos lo han expresado en su mensaje de Laudato Si, nos tiene que llevar a las siguientes consideraciones, en las cuales yo quisiera dar un testimonio de una especie de checklist de temas que por la brevedad de la presentación no podemos desarrollar, pero creo que sería bueno que compartamos hoy una agenda común. Es más, propongo que IUCN cree una comisión, un ámbito de continuidad donde espiritualidad y conservación formen parte de un área transversal donde todos podamos conversar y aportar, porque nuestra referencia hoy es simbólica, pero se tiene que establecer no un panel, sino una conversación. A modo de contribución, y para ni extenderme ni desarrollarlo, comparto con ustedes el índice de aquellos temas que creo son relevantes que podamos poner en una agenda global. Debemos pensar la visión desde lo global y tenemos que actuar desde lo local. No debemos confundir la fe, que es esencial a nuestra humanidad, con la religión, que es una institución, con la religiosidad, que es una elección personal, y con la espiritualidad, que es la energía transformadora que hace que todos nosotros, como mamíferos sofisticados que somos al llegar, veamos si vamos a ser humanos antes de partir. Todo ser humano por ser humano es un ser espiritual. Y la espiritualidad es justamente lo que nos permite, sin distinción, celebrar la unidad en la diversidad. Y que la humanidad es la única expresión del mundo de lo vivo que puede, si crece espiritualmente, elevarse por encima del reino animal, pero al mismo tiempo es la única especie que puede degradarse y comportarse de manera tal que no lo haría ningún animal en la tierra. Podemos elevarnos o podemos degradarnos. Quien degrada el ambiente, degrada lo humano. Y para todos nosotros, ser humano como potencia de un verbo que se despliega en la espiritualidad, permite reconocer que así como las especies evolucionaron, y ustedes son los que lo estudian, desde la espiritualidad tenemos la oportunidad de que la humanidad pegue un salto cuántico, donde las religiones ya no sean barreras, sino oportunidades para celebrar nuestras diferencias y de maneras diferentes decir exactamente lo mismo. Ustedes son en el lenguaje bíblico los constructores del arca. Y la espiritualidad es lo que permite escuchar el llamado, que haya alguien simple y justo entre todos nosotros que escuche la voz anticipada que anuncia que el diluvio viene. La espiritualidad, a diferencia de la religión y la religiosidad, nos vuelve a la raíz de lo más natural que tiene lo humano. Por eso nuestro homenaje a los pueblos originarios, que sin tanta formalidad y sin abuso ni de autoridad ni de poder institucional, obraron siempre por respeto de integrarse a lo natural en una sola unidad. Todos nosotros somos llamados a restaurar la unidad y eso es lo que debemos conservar. La naturaleza es de por sí la obra de arte del Creador. Y así como un curador de arte, ustedes curan y sanan lo que debemos conservar. El trabajo que tenemos por delante requiere de la ciencia, pero se resuelve solo en la conciencia. No tenemos un desafío científico. Necesitamos a la ciencia, pero nuestro problema no es técnico ni es tecnológico. Nuestro desafío es ético. Es una posición de valor. Y esa posición de valor tiene que ver con este cambio de época en este tiempo donde así como estamos bajo el riesgo de la amenaza, estamos en la oportunidad de transformarnos, de crecer, de evolucionar. Ya no de tener razón, sino de razonar. Ya no de tener conocimiento, sino de tener iluminación. Ya no de imponernos unos a otros con la fuerza de la prepotencia ni de la violencia, sino renunciando a todo fundamentalismo, volver a nuestros fundamentos. Por eso tenemos que volver a nuestros maestros. La primera de ellas es la Madre Tierra, ahí Dios, el misterio, lo inefable, como quieran llamarlo, que no tiene ninguna importancia. Ya que los que somos creyentes balbuceamos en palabras y símbolos aquello que sabemos que es, pero que no podemos explicar. Y sin embargo, en esa conciencia expandida que permite la iluminación, no pretendemos ser inteligentes, sino sabios. la humanidad, cada vez más sofisticada, cada vez más adelantada en su saber, pierde el rumbo de su ser en su hacer y es cada vez menos sabia. Solamente con sabiduría podríamos cuidar la casa común y entender que nosotros y la tierra somos uno. Si nosotros y la tierra somos uno, somos todos uno como hermanos de una sola gran familia. Y es por eso los que creemos que hay un Padre que está en el cielo, ya no le preguntamos a Él por qué nos pasa lo que nos pasa, sino escuchamos la pregunta de Él a nosotros. No dónde está Dios, sino Él que pregunta dónde está el hombre. Y el hombre debe responder con su hacer, en la única expresión humana que tenemos, que es reflejo de lo divino, que no es con la razón, sino antes con el corazón. Nosotros debemos amar la tierra, porque debemos amar al prójimo como nosotros mismos, porque debemos en el amor entender la referencia que ninguno de nosotros es lo que tiene, sino lo que hace y transforma con amor. Sin que nadie se entristezca, todo lo contrario, permítanme recordar que todo lo que tenemos lo vamos a dejar cuando nos toque partir. Así que mientras estamos, reconocer y agradecer los dones que son bendiciones, que no son posesiones ni son derechos adquiridos. Por eso el primer verbo que debemos conjugar es gracias, reconocer y agradecer los dones. No somos ni poseedores, ni soberanos, ni dueños, somos peregrinos y testigos de este don que empieza con nuestra vida. Y por eso una agenda de desarrollo sustentable, de conservación y de ambiente es política de derechos humanos, pero no solo humano, es el derecho a la vida en todas sus manifestaciones, porque toda vida es energía y esa energía nos devuelve el misterio de que todos pertenecemos a un mismo origen del que venimos, al que volvemos. Y por ello estamos llamados, todos como uno, a aceptar no la amenaza, sino la oportunidad, no la apocalipsis de lo que no será, sino la buena aventuranza de lo que sabremos hacer. Ya no pensar en el futuro como lo que viene signado por el destino, sino que el futuro es lo que hacemos juntos en el presente. Y como queremos un futuro mejor para nuestra Madre Tierra y para todos nosotros y nuestros hijos, es que ponemos manos a nuestra obra. Y la esperanza ya no es espera. Conjugar la esperanza es en tiempo presente de lo que nosotros hacemos para que en lo que creemos definitivamente suceda. Por eso tenemos que agradecer a hombres y mujeres que hicieron el esfuerzo. Es un tiempo profético, no porque es el oráculo de lo que vemos que sucederá, sino porque escuchamos el llamado que si no actuamos nos vamos a lamentar. Y por eso volvemos a nuestros profetas, ya sea Moisés que nos dio la ley, ya sea Jesús que fue nuestro rabino más revolucionario. En aquel aprendimos justamente las enseñanzas de la Torá que no la vino a abolir sino a llenar de espíritu, de poder encontrar todos nosotros en Muhammad paz y bendición para él, el maestro de la enseñanza de la sumisión, y entender que 2000 años después Occidente pegó la vuelta de lo que Oriente y los pueblos originarios ya nos enseñaron, ya sea en Buda y en Confucio, ya sean en todas las tradiciones originarias que nosotros diezmamos y destruimos sin reconocer su profunda sabiduría. Espiritualidad y conservación es diálogo, es unir el cosmos con la historia, es dejar las ideologías para afirmar la raíz de nuestras creencias, para que no seamos todos lo mismo, sino en la singularidad de cada uno, afirmar lo universal. Ya lo dijo Baruch Spinoza, Dios se revela en la naturaleza y la debemos venerar con reverencia. Ese temor reverente no es miedo, es justamente el clamor de que todos nosotros, como uno, afirmaremos en el amor, por la tierra y por el cielo, que todos como uno somos hijos del mismo Dios. Ose Shalom Bimbromav, Uyase Shalom Aleinu, Bialkol Israel, Bialkol Yoshbeit Tevel, Bimbru Amén. El que hace la paz en las alturas celestiales, haga descender de su paz en nosotros, entre nosotros, para todos los seres humanos, como una única humanidad, en esta única tierra, que es nuestra casa común, y nos sea permitido, hoy y siempre, decir amén.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. You've presented us with the truth, to trust, love, that what we're talking about here goes beyond language. It can't be defined in language, although you did a miraculous job. And it brings us face to face with choice and with time. So with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Sionje from Tokyo, Japan. And she is, I've had the opportunity to speak with her before this forum, this dialogue, and she has an amazingly open heart, and she works from heart intelligence first, and knowledge, intellectual knowledge second. And she's very grounded in that. She is the chairwoman of the Goy Foundation, which is the foundation of her adopted father. And she has also started something called the Soul of Women, which is bringing women from all over the world together to really aggregate their voice around a shift in consciousness and enlightenment for conservation and for the earth. So please welcome Mrs. Sionje.
Good afternoon, IUCN members and friends. I am so honored to be part of this high-level dialogue as one of the journeys of the IUCN Congress, Spirituality and Conservation. We have come from different countries, traditions and cultures, but there is one thing that connects us strongly together. That is our love for humanity and our love for our beautiful planet Earth. All of us in this room share a mutual desire and passion to create a culture of peace with nature. We cannot separate spirituality from conservation. We are a planet at the crossroads. Spirituality and conservation must walk hand in hand so that we may take the path of conscious evolution for all living things. There is an ancient Japanese concept called Kotodama. It is a belief that sounds, words, and thought forms have mystical power and energy, and they can affect objects and influence our environment. body, mind, and soul. Over 60 years ago, my father founded the message and prayer, "May peace prevail on earth," which is now embraced as a universal message of peace, transcending race, religion, and creed. I believe that "May peace prevail on earth" is a modern-day Koto Dharma, which has touched the hearts of humanity and nature alike. Have also come to experience that words and the consciousness of love and gratitude is one of the most powerful thought forms of all. When we send our gratitude out to the kingdom of plants, animals, and all living things, nature listened to us. Our words are alive, and so is nature. Our native ancestors communicated with the natural world and lived in harmony with nature. They expressed love and gratitude to all living things through sacred ceremonies. Many of the old ways have been forgotten, but now it is time a shift from a culture of materialism and greed to a culture of spirituality and higher consciousness by remembering the ways of our ancestors. Spirituality is at the heart of conservation. Expressions of love and gratitude is at the heart of spirituality. We must assist humanity to find, because between the mind and the heart, to find inner peace, which leads to global peace. We need a culture based on the divine spark within each of our hearts to create true peace with nature. Each and every one of us has the responsibility to take action in creating a world at peace with nature. We cannot leave the responsibility to the leaders of government and experts alone. The planet is at a crossroads, so let us together, each and every one of us, fulfill our sacred mission as caretaker of the earth and inspire humanity to live in harmony with nature. I feel a great awakening on consciousness, and it is taking place in this room right now. May peace prevail on earth. Thank you.
I think Mrs. Sianje reminds us, you know, there's been a lot of violence against Mother Earth and a lot of violence against women over the centuries, and I think they come from the same place. And if we heal one, we will heal the other. I also want to add something that if you know about the peace polls, how many of you know about the peace polls? This is Mrs. Sianje and her husband's work, and there are now peace polls in every single country in the world. So I'm going to ask Reverend Peter Harris to take the podium. And he is the co-founder of a Christian environmental organization called La Roca. They're in 20 different countries. They have quite an extensive network. We had an opportunity to chat the other night at dinner, and I was overwhelmed with the amount of energy that he has and how far-reaching he is in the world with his work. He's known among his colleagues as a very joyful environmentalist. He doesn't see this as an onerous job. He sees it as an invitation to protect the creation. Please welcome Reverend Peyton Harris.
Thank you very much, Sally. It's a great privilege to be here. It's very nice to be among friends. We've been A Rocha, which is Portuguese for the rock, because that's where the first field study center and bird observatory began in the early 80s. We've been members of A Rocha, of IUCN now, I think, for a couple of decades. And it's really good to be among friends. I have a very short time to do a lot of things, and so we're going to go fast. But I want, first of all, to say that there are many, many misapprehensions around about Christian belief, and it's not helped by what we've come to call the toxic gospel. If you consider the gospel to have been genetically modified in many parts of the world by the DNA of consumerism, you will see how we have an uphill struggle. And I was so grateful to hear what the rabbi said about that, because if you noticed also in that beautiful video from the Holy Father, he talks about consumerism as a religion, and it's good we're having a debate about spirituality and religion, but honestly, we have to name our gods. And there is a certain truth that the dominant religion, which is laying waste to what the Pope calls our common home, to what we Christians call creation, and believe me, lots of us have stopped arguing about origins a very long time ago. A Rocha has, I don't know how many scientists within its ranks, and Simon Stewart on its board, and this is just not a... But creation is a good word. Thank you, Dr. Wilson, for writing that book and making this common language for us. If we don't understand that creation is at stake, mainly because this religious belief that if you have more stuff, you'll be happier, and if you have more money, your life is going to be more simple. It's a purely religious belief. There's very little empirical background. We have to really, we really have to take issue. I'm a fundraiser. I know a lot of wealthy people. So trust me, it's not an easy thing being wealthy. If we don't name our gods and identify them and tackle them, and it is to our great sadness that these powerful voices are within the Christian church worldwide. So to clear a few misapprehensions, let me do what Simon and many Christian conservation biologists did in the Journal of Conservation Biology not very long ago, responding to David Orr's insightful article called Armageddon Extinction, and explain what Christian theology is and isn't. First of all, it's just a quick run through. I do read biblical Hebrew, so trust me, there's some scholarship behind this. First of all, we understand everything is not around us. Everything is the handiwork of a loving God. And Psalm 24 and verse 1 says that the earth, ha'eretz, is the Lord's. So it's not ours. It's not natural resources. It's not even environment. We have difficulty living with this language because it puts the human story right in the middle of things. For the Christian, it is Christ at the heart of his creation, and it's this wonderful gift to us, of course, ecosystem services. But its meaning is to worship God. It is sacred, it is holy, because it's God's handiwork. So there's a huge conservation ethic right there. Secondly, what's wrong with it? 3,000 years before the words marine crisis were ever heard, the prophet Hosea wrote that it was the broken relationship with God which resulted in lying, murder, stealing, those human abuses that Sally mentioned. And then Hosea goes on to say, therefore, the land mourns, and the fish of the sea and the birds of the air are dying. Achim Steiner, your former Director General, said to me at the World Conservation Congress in Bangkok in 2004 what was difficult for him to say, which is that essentially it's not, as you were saying, a technical problem that we have. We have a human problem in the Anthropocene. And Achim said, it's changing people that is at the heart of our task. And what is transformative for people is what they believe and what they value. And in Christian belief, there's something fundamentally broken about us, and it's our relationship with God that is broken. And the devastation of our human and social relationships are inevitably going to lead to the devastation of our ecological relationships. Gus Speth recently said exactly the same thing. He said, I used to think that the basic environmental problems were pollution and overfishing, and He said, I now realize it's greed and selfishness, and we scientists don't know how to fix it. But it doesn't happily stop there. The Economist said that the environmental message is kind of the Christian message without any hope, you know, beautiful garden, the usual suspects, that's us, and we're doomed. And the environmental movement has been very criticized, hasn't it, for being gloom and doom, and, you know, I eat more muesli than you do, and my sandals are more threadbare than yours, and let's be honest, we all came by plane, right? So there is hope, but in the Christian understanding of hope, why is there hope? It's because God loves the earth. God is committed to his creation. And believe it or not, the gospel begins in the creation and ends in the new creation. It doesn't begin with people in trouble and end up with people. It ends up with the creation and the new creation. And this has practical importance in two ways. One, first of all, there is no us and them in this. Business is not the bad guys, and the green guys are the good guys. Because we are created. Neither, come to that, is there a spirituality of us and them. Paul, preaching in Athens to a far more plural crowd than we have even here, and this is wonderful, said, we are God's offspring. And that we is needed if we are going to, together, as humans facing this situation, begin to come beyond this crossroad and turn it round. And the wonderful message of Romans to the Christians is that the groaning creation, what the Apostle Paul calls the groaning creation, is going to be drawn into the glorious freedom, he says, of the people of God. It's a message for the whole of creation. Now, the church has forgotten it. But I'm bringing you really good news, which is that we are witnessing, and we've been doing this 30 years, during which I have personally banded 100,000 birds and lost many nights' sleep. We have seen an extraordinary change in the global Christian church, and there's many evidence of it. And Laudato Si is just the most glorious recent manifestation of this. I want to show you a map which shows why this complete change within the Christian church is of huge importance. And I'm grateful again to Simon Stewart, who in his spare time did something that had never been done before and overlaid on top of the biodiversity hotspots just one tribe, if you like, within the Christian church worldwide, which is the evangelicals. Nobody had asked very carefully, okay, we have the hotspots, but if what they believe is critical to what's going to happen, what do they believe in these places? And you will see, surprisingly, don't bother about the detail, but the blue is significantly over 10%. Significantly over 10% of the people living there are not just Christians, but evangelicals. So there are, if we were to do this with the Orthodox and the Catholics, it would be even more striking. Now, this represents a massive opportunity. 50% of the people farming in Manitoba or Texas are Baptists or Mennonites. I can guarantee you that very few of them think God cares about the soil and how they farm, although they're tremendous to their workers. But they're beginning to understand that Scripture says God cares about how you farm and what happens to the water and the soil and the biodiversity on your land. I know this because a dear friend of mine has gone organic on 4,000 acres out of his Christian faith. It's going to change the landscape all over the world when Christians make it integral to their faith to care for creation. And this also represents a huge threat. I was preaching in a church in the south of the USA, and a gentleman said to me at the end, if the rivers are going to turn to blood, which is kind of excessive language, why should we bother cleaning them up? So these are our problems, and the threat is that if Christians really think there's a planet B and we're going to it, which is not what Scripture teaches, the new creation, the Greek word is renewed creation. Heaven is coming here. It's the renewal of creation, and frankly, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's that hope of the renewed creation, because in the lifetime of our organization, we have lost half of vertebrate life on Earth. So you would say the data doesn't make you hopeful. What makes me hopeful is God cares, God loves this, we do this out of worship for him. I want to drill down and get really practical at the end and issue a challenge, because I love fundraising, and funding is critical to the success of what we are doing all over the world as Christians in our various cultures, various languages, and all the rest of it, because this is a global movement, and the Rocha is not an Anglo-Saxon cryptic anything. We are a ground-up movement of Christians all over the world doing this. I want to show you a video about money and about tactics which Simon has made it. I'm allowed to do this because he's no longer IUCN, he's Synchronicity Earth. It just lasts a minute, but this is a very practical place I want to bring this into land. Could we get this video going?
One of the problems we face in conservation at the moment is we are thinking short term. The way that donors work at the moment is they fund projects, maybe a 2-year project, a 3-year project, if you're very lucky, a 5-year project. But that isn't how the world actually works. Ecosystems, species, human communities live on much longer timescales than that. And a project approach to fundraising is not a good way of going ahead and making things work. When I look at the Red List of Threatened Species, for which I'm responsible as chair of the IUCN Species Survival Commission, one thing we can see is that long-term conservation programs are usually the most successful. There are many examples of this around the world. And one reason why I like a Rocha, apart from its Christian basis, is that it works in places long-term. Once it's committed to conserving a place, that's basically a permanent commitment for a Rocha. And that is how conservation does work and should work.
Thank you. So I want to say two things. That belonging, that long-term commitment to people and places comes because of what Christians call the incarnation. Jesus' name, Emmanuel, God with us. I sometimes feel doing conservation is like when I used to be an Anglican minister in a poorish parish near Liverpool. It's sitting at the bedside of a dying friend. I'm just there. We don't think we're doing this because we're going to save the world. We know the world is going to be saved, but in a different way. But we're not going away, we're there, and we're going to carry on. Can I appeal to the philanthropists in the room to consider what Simon has said, even if you don't believe in the incarnation, and change the funding structure so that all the heroes who I've been meeting at every Congress who are doing this fantastic work, some who are not here, like Lynn Clayton in Sulawesi, who's been there 30 years for the Barbarossa. The funding structures keep people on the ground, and it's not just the boom and bust of a short-term funding cycle. Because we believe money can be made holy too, it's nice to end with a funding call. Thank you very much.
And the funding cycles and the issues that we're dealing with that really span a long period of time now don't match the political cycles either, of 2 to 4 to 6 years in most countries. And we're looking at 20, 30, 40, 50-year programs. And that stability, both in funding and in commitment and in policy, have to stay steady and in place for that long period of time. So whether it's in the public sector or in the NGO sector, wherever it is, that's a piece that is a tough one. It's a real tough one for the issues that we're facing, and thank you for bringing that forward. There was an organization that said, you brought up stuff, and it was an organization started a few years ago to address materialism and consumerism, excessive consumerism, and their motto was, less stuff, more fun. And it's true. I bet everyone in this room has experienced that. So our next speaker is Din Shamusidan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he is a professor at the University in Jakarta, at the State Islamic University in Jakarta. And he has also served as chairman of 2 or 3 other organizations in which Islam has been promoting peace and promoting conservation. And he came all the way from Indonesia just to be with us, and he told me that he had been flying, I think, 35 hours. How? Pardon? 18 hours, sorry. So still, and he was also traveling for a very long period of time. So please welcome Professor Din Shamsuddin.
Indeed, Hawaii is a neighbor of Bali in Indonesia. I would like to start with an Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum, aloha. I am delighted to be here, meeting with so many religionists, I believe, environmentalists, and activists of conservation. And our Congress is indeed timely and quite relevant to our situation today, when human beings have been facing the most challenging to human civilizations is the existence of what is called as a cumulative global damage. And therefore, climate change and global warming has encouraged the emergence of these kind of damages, and peace is no longer the opposite of war, but the opposite of the absence of peace, which is poverty, illiteracy, backwardness, injustice, discrimination, many kinds of violence, ecological collapse, and cultural tsunami. And therefore, what we need today is indeed a cumulative global damage control. That's collaboration and cooperation between many sectors of the society. With regard to conservation and the environmental crisis, which is indeed, we may see it as a moral crisis because of the immoral behavior of human beings. Islam, if I may share a bit the Islamic perspective on environment, on nature, we believe Islam, Muslims believe Islam as the religion of nature. There are about 750 verses in the Holy Quran relating to nature. And among the 114 chapters of the Holy Quran, the names of which are taken from the name of animals, plants, trees, and others. And this is the recognition of Islam to the importance of nature. From the cosmological perspective in Islam, God as the creator and nature and man as the created, as the creature, but there is correspondence between God and non-God. I say it as a correspondent between God and non-God through spiritual relationship. So all the creatures, man and nature, are indeed spiritual beings from God as the highest and supreme spirit, as the creator. And there is also a kind of analogy, the second aspect in the cosmological doctrine of Islam, that there is analogy between microcosms, man, and macrocosm, the nature. There is analogy. And therefore, from the Islamic cosmological perspective, nature is sacred. It has its own psyche, its own soul, like the human being. And therefore, the Arabic term and the Quranic term for nature is not in the form of object, but it's called tobi'ah in Arabic, meaning nature. Tobi'ah is not matbu'. Matbu' is object, the created. But tobi'ah is the created, but it has also the potential to create. So as subject. Maybe in Latin there is a term natura naturata and natura naturatan. It's different. So from the Islamic perspective, nature is sacred, has its own psyche, its own spirit, its own soul, and therefore human being as God vicegerents on earth is only has the very mission to create reconstruction, restoration, conservation. I'll call it is islah, the opposite of fasad, corruption, or mischief. So this is the very mission of human being as God's vicegerent on earth, Khalifatullah fil ard in Arabic, with the very mission to engage in and the activities of Islah, to be Muslim, meaning to conduct all activities of reconstruction, restoration, renovation, rehabilitation, up to conservation. And based on these very values from Islam, if I may share, as I said earlier, that environmental crisis is indeed moral crisis. The Holy Quran has stated that mischief, any kind of corruption appears on earth, on the land, on the sea, because of the mischief of human beings, so that God will taste a bit from their mischief in order for them to turn back to the truth. And therefore, what needs to be done in the future? Number one, we need to change the mindset to bring about a new interpretation to the text, to the Holy Scriptures, and bring about a kind of paradigm shift in theology to shift from traditional conservative theological dogmatisms to a new one which is more progressive theology. The conservative one sees that nature, that the earth is created by God and human being may utilize, and sometimes with over exploitation of the nature that leads to kind of damages and corruption on earth, to a new one that nature is not an object, but it's indeed is a subject. And therefore the Muslims, not only through the international Islamic Declaration on Climate Change we issued in Istanbul a few times back, but also we need to bring about the new terms. The Indonesian Council of Ulama, which is the umbrella organization of all Islamic organizations in Indonesia as the most populous Muslim country of about 220 million Muslims. This council, I happen to be the chairman in the last few years, and now I'm chairman of the advisory council of the council, bringing about, introduce the term to respect the nature. Not only the issue of conservation, but on respectation, if the term is correct, to respect the nature. We create the body within the council to respect the nature based on that theological perspective that the nature is God's creature, but it is sacred. And therefore, we need to change our theology. And I would like to suggest to this Congress and to all religious communities, actually I echo the idea during the symposium at the Vatican sometimes ago, that we need shared ethical values. We need shared theology. I think many scriptures of religion, not only the Abrahamic religions as mentioned by His Excellency, Mr. Minister, but also by other religious theology, bring about positive views on nature, on conservation, on environmental and environmentalisms. So we need new theology, which consists of shared ethical values from perspective of our religion. But also we need to encourage new culture, which is environmentally friendly in our society by changing the lifestyle, the modern lifestyle through exploitation of natures in economy, in culture, and other aspects of human civilization, to the new one, which is indeed to respect the nature. And finally, I would like to suggest through this Congress that our ultimate goal is there, how to conserve the nature, how to protect and respect the nature, and therefore we need to engage in a long journey. I agree with the terms. It should be a long march from Hawaii, maybe to somewhere else, and through many countries to promote these very noble ideas, but by doing concrete activities on the ground, such as we need to adjust the school curricula, for example, in all our schools, religious institutions, religious organizations. Like in my country, so many religious organizations, each has dozen schools. Like my organization, Muhammadiyah, has 14,000 schools from elementary to high schools, and 172 high learning institutions, universities and colleges, and also other organizations. Through our school, through education, if we can instill this kind of ethical values and the new theology, the theology of conservation, the theology of respecting nature as stipulated by our Holy Scriptures. I believe by doing so, I think this kind of Congress may move one step to another in more concrete way. Not only our congresses is only between two congresses, but our Congress is moving on that, what I call it, moving on journey toward a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 20 million Muslims in the world, and with the kind of work that you're doing, if you can reach half of those with your message, that would be a turning point right there. So thank you very much for everything that you're doing. Thank you. Our next speaker has been introduced already, Polani Kanahele, and she and I had a conversation before the Congress, and I asked her, she's has a long ancestry from the original Hawaiians and is very passionate and proud about that, and I asked her about the power of place in her in the way that she perceives the world, and also conservation and taking care of nature here in the Hawaiian Islands. So please take the podium. Thank you.
I'm taking a picture of all your faces because I want you to, I'm going to remember that you're here and that you're going to be responsible for everything we say and everything you hear. So ho'olohe me ka, ha'ole ho'olohe me ka pepeau wale no, ho'olohe me ka lolo, a me ka pu'uai, a me ka na'au, Oya ka mea nui. Okay. So listen with your intelligence, with your heart, with your intuitive senses. That's the way you listen to this particular panel. My bio says that I'm retired. And I wanted to emphasize that, and so that's the way I wrote my bio, and I've written that for the last 5 years. They don't pay attention to that. And once you say you're retired, you become busier than ever, because everybody thinks, okay, she has time. But I'm very happy to be here at this time. I think it's an honor for Hawaii to be represented at this high-level conference about our aina, about our land, about where we sleep, where we walk on. At the heart of Hawaii's belief is nature. Nature are our gods. And I'd like to further introduce this part of my talk by looking at 3 different topics. One is ceremony, kinship, and old wisdom. 5 steps in ceremony. And our family teaches ceremony. That's who we are. And ceremony means you're very connected to your deities. First step in ceremony is that ceremony and protocol is a process of separating the sacred from the mundane. And this is something that everybody can practice individually. Ceremony also establishes a relationship with persons, with your deities, as well as with places. Ceremony is a way of looking at how the codes of ethics of ceremony teaches you to respect, teaches you to have the right attitude towards places, towards people, towards elemental forms, which for us are the spiritual deities that sustain our lives. Ceremony is the conduit that flows through generations of people, intergenerational, with the knowledge coming from one generation to the next. Ceremony allows us, or is a procedure that allows us to to reach out into the realm of the unseen. But most importantly, it allows them to reach you. And I want to leave you with an example of that. How many of you were at the opening ceremony? Okie dokie. I want to explain a little bit about what the opening ceremony was about, because I know from conversations that people were very inspired by it. It was very heartful, it was very soulful, and that's exactly what it's meant to be. When you saw the gentleman coming up on stage to set up a lele, and the lele was the platform. It was a platform to set offerings. The offerings were vegetative, all of the things of our forest. That particular part of the ceremony was to honor our forest. We honor the forest because it is the tall trees of the forest that chums water from the sky, from the atmosphere. We honor the forest because it is the forest that goes through a transpiration cycle and gives water back to the air. And water attracts water, and the water comes back down in cycles. And so that's what that ceremony was about, honoring our forest. The next part of the ceremony was the dance that the whole group did on the side as well as on stage. That's what we call a hula mano. And hula mano is a dance to sharks. And the sharks are very important to us because they were the ones that navigated through the water and found the hot spots and told us exactly where to go, where the hot spots were. And eventually, and you could see the movement that was very shark-like going through the water. Eventually, the dance ended up with a volcanic eruption. So as soon as you find the hot spot, you find the eruption. As soon as you find the eruption, you find land. That's what the chant was about. The settlement of people as they come across the ocean. The ocean is our continent. It is part of who we are. It's what gives us life as well as our land. And the other thing I want to tell you about that particular opening ceremony is that the ending part, after all the talking, we had more hula after that, more dancing. All of the dancing after that was about hulihia. Say hulihia. Hulihia is about changes. It's about big changes, sometimes chaotic changes. It can be a change of your mindset, change of belief. It can be change of land. It can be change of the ocean, changes of the government. That is hulihia. That's what those chants were about. And for 2 months, the halaus from Hawaii Island, from Maui, from Oahu, from Kauai, practiced those dances. Hulihia, hulihia, hulihia. That's what they sent out. This whole idea of being able to reach out into the realm of the unseen. The hulihia is what they were sending. And what did we get back in return? On the morning of the opening of our ceremony, we got 2 hurricanes. We have to pay attention to that. We do pay attention to that. We do pay attention to what our voices are calling. And so that's the whole thing about chanting. You need to know what you're chanting and who you're chanting to. There's a reverberation that go out that we're very, very conscious of. So it depends on how you chant. If you chant, or if you chant, depends on who you're chanting to. okay, and who you want to attract. Well, for 2 months they practiced Hulihia, and right on the day of the opening, it was on our doorstep. It was wonderful. It was an answer to many things. It meant to us that this whole idea of IUCN gathering on our doorstep, when we first heard about it, oh, another big conference is coming to Hawaii. Sorry. But the more we got into it, the more we realized that it's about who we are. It's about this land. It's about the elements out there, the winds, the rains. And we gave nomenclature to all of them, all the winds, all the rains, all the oceans, different kinds of waves. They all have nomenclature. So when we get to chant, we name the winds, we name the ocean that we want to attract. Okay. Wait, I got I got carried away with something else, and I'm not supposed to do that. I got to stay on track here. Okay. But I was going to talk about kinship. And kinship is exactly what we did. Kinship is being able to name everything. And that's what our ancestors did. They named the sun. I mean, they still called it a common name of God, but God is a common name. They named it Kani Holani. They named it according to its energy, and the energy is heat. And so they named all of these energies, forms that is around us. And when you get into ceremonies, you send out the names, the nomenclature that's assigned to them. That's dividing the sacred from the mundane. If you want to say mundane, you just say God. If you want to say sacred, you say the name. And you call it out. And that's the idea of kinship. And so many of us as families, we have, Hawaiian families, we have names that's either fire names, or water names, or names of rain, or names of wind, names of land, mountains, etc. And it tells us who our ancestors were, or what our ancestors were attached to. And therefore we got those names. Eventually, for those of us that continued this practice, we actually know a lot about that particular entity. So in our family, we have a lot of fire names. So we keep track of the volcano and what it's doing. And because we live on the island that is very active with volcano, we see year after year after year, those chants that our ancestors composed generations ago come back to us. Same kind of eruptions. Okay. And so the chants are about the space. The space does not change. Our daily activities change. Modernity changes us, and that's fine. But the space is the same. And so the names remain. And so we need to, as fire people, we need to know a lot about the volcano. We talk a lot with the scientists of the volcano, and we exchange ideas, because some of the things that's in our chants, we don't understand, and we don't see the imagery as well as we should. And so we go back to the scientists, we have a conversation with them, we translate this literally, and they know exactly what it's talking about. And so it comes alive for us again. So we have a nice relationship with the scientists. Well, with some of them. No, I mean really with some of them. And but that's what you have to do. Today, we live in today's day, today's age, and we have to exchange ideas because we live in the same world. And in order for us to get the fullness of the world, we have to be able to exchange. Okay? The other thing that I was going to talk about was old wisdom. And old wisdom is exactly what I did at the opening, was chanting my way in here, or our way in here, to actually use the space. Old wisdom is all of our chants. Chants are a way of gathering data. And so it's not like poetry, where you put the niceties in the poetry. Chants gather data. This is the rain, this is what happens, this is the process of water, this is the process how things grow, this is the process how the earth is prepared. And this is the process how the volcano erupts. It erupts this way, this way, this way, and this way. That's what chants are about. That's what we chant. And the thing about rechanting it over and over again is not only remembering the event, but also calling up another event, just like it. That's what we know about chanting. But that's old wisdom. And old wisdom is applicable today. Old wisdom has to do with the space, as I said, and so it's applicable. And we use it because we see it happening around us. Did I talk about everything I was going to say? Okay, so you got it? I know your face. Hope to see you often. Mahalo.
What you're talking about, Pulani, is, for me personally, makes me long for what, as close as I am, and I know most of the people here are so close to nature, but we've moved into the concept of Earth Inc. Everything is for sale. Everything is for sale. And we've lost there's an absence of the sacred, you know, in our personal lives and with places. So I have a question, which anyone can answer, but what are the assumptions? What kind of assumptions have we been operating under that have created climate change, have created a world with so much poverty, so much strife, war, hoarding, all of this? What are those assumptions, and how do we change those assumptions so that we change our narrative, change our choices? So anyone can approach that? Anyone? Rabbi.
I switch for Spanish. It's okay? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Okay. Todos hablamos de algo importante que es cómo evolucionar, cómo vamos a evolucionar. Y el comportamiento humano debe respetar su naturaleza. Nosotros, no digo que sea ni bueno o malo, somos así. No entendemos sino tarde y mal cuando pasamos un límite. No es muy sabio, pero así somos. No actuamos temprano y bien por anticipación, sino tarde y mal por una restricción. Ahora, si es así, ahí en tu pregunta, ¿cómo asumimos que lo que sucede? Porque el cambio climático que ahora todos asumimos como un problema, en realidad no es el problema, es el indicador del problema. Es como quien tiene fiebre y tiene temperatura. Y uno no se puede enojar con el termómetro. Y quizás vamos a tener grandes discusiones sobre cómo medir la temperatura, pero no vamos a abordar la raíz del problema, que es de qué estamos enfermos. Y si estamos enfermos de valores, no se repone ni se repara con tecnología, sino con una evolución que yo llamo espiritual. Quizás una de las cosas que podríamos llevarnos como trabajo es volver a definir las palabras. Porque no necesariamente cuando usamos las palabras nos remitimos a lo mismo. Por ejemplo, este panel, espiritualidad y conservación. Yo no sé cómo se atrevieron, porque no sé qué asunción hay de la palabra espiritualidad. Hay una intuición que dice lo podemos conectar, pero no hay una precisión por dónde se conecta. Lo humano se hizo sabio cuando siguió su intuición y en función de la intuición amplió el conocimiento. Entonces, contesto tu pregunta. Por evolución positiva, un salto en la expansión de la conciencia nos va a hacer reflexionar y darnos cuenta que el indicador nos permite cambios de paradigma, porque es cambio de manera de vivir, cambio de valores, que no significa privarnos de nada, sino hacer un uso responsable. Somos seres creativos, libres y responsables. Y terminamos siendo poco creativos, decimos todo es así y así va a continuar. No somos libres porque no la ejercemos la libertad. Decimos estamos condenados, estamos restringidos, no podemos y podemos. Y en lugar de ser responsables, nos transformamos en víctimas de las circunstancias. Y ahí creo, el mundo necesita, como recién explicaba nuestra maestra de Hawái, el mundo necesita tantos árboles como líderes. Y nosotros tenemos que reponer ambas cosas, liderazgos y árboles. Y por eso también sobre este punto planteo, si hay una evolución en valores por expansión de la conciencia, necesitamos role models, necesitamos no héroes, sino ejemplos. Necesitamos no ídolos, sino personas que traduzcan el valor que es una idea en la virtud que es una práctica. Pero hasta que eso suceda, tenemos que asegurarnos entre todos que nada va a ser rentable si no es sustentable. Que nada sea posible de ser hecho si no es con los principios de la sustentabilidad y del respeto por la naturaleza. Y por eso vuelvo a desafiar a este foro a que esto es un inicio de una nueva dimensión de la conversación, que hay que ver si tenemos, en mi opinión, el valor, lo decía muy bien nuestro hermano, bueno, en mi caso es primo, porque los musulmanes somos primos de los judíos, lo decía muy bien, nosotros vamos a tener el valor desde la religión de plantear una nueva teología que renuncia a todo dogma como una verdad absoluta. Parece que sí. Como una verdad absoluta vamos a tener esa posibilidad. O sea, no es profanar la escritura, es volver a darle sacralidad con una nueva interpretación. Esa es la parte que nos tocaría a nosotros. ¿Para qué? Para emancipar a la religión de todo dogmatismo y vuelva a ser espiritual. ¿Y ustedes estarán dispuestos a que la ciencia ilumine la conciencia para que no se transforme en otro dogmatismo de verdades absolutas, cuando en lugar son herramientas de abrir nuevas oportunidades? Haremos ese diálogo, y ese diálogo en realidad tiene que ver con que la religión no viene a explicar cómo las cosas son, sino que intenta proponer una respuesta de para qué son. Y la ciencia es la mejor herramienta que tenemos para explicar cómo las cosas son. Ahora, el para qué es humano, y ahí es donde estamos juntos desafiando este desafío que es enorme, que es inmenso, y por eso vuelvo a insistir, La oportunidad que ustedes nos dan a la religión y la religión que nos damos nosotros en la oportunidad de este diálogo simétrico y responsable es volver a elevar la espiritualidad para contestar tu pregunta. Hasta que no haya un crecimiento y una evolución espiritual, no vamos a cambiar esas asunciones. Por eso planteo, los que quieren lo van a hacer porque están iluminados. Y los que aún están en la oscuridad, las leyes y las normas de la economía, de la política y de las reglas de juego no deben permitir que sigamos degradando y profanando a la tierra, porque lo que corre riesgo es la dignidad de lo humano.
We have a 4-minute video, and I think we do not have time to show it. I think we have to be out of this room. It's called Lord Man, and it juxtaposes where my question was going is what those assumptions that we've been operating under, I think, are separateness, competition, and we talked about the sacred not being present, and scarcity. And those have been assumptions and mindsets, and it's created, I think, a lot of what we have in the world. So what are the new assumptions that we need to get into our lexicon and our narrative? So I'd like to pose that to anyone else. We have time for a couple more questions. Would love your insight on, how do we move ourselves into, we have to use different language. Language is holding us in place, and we're right on the cusp of being able to define a new narrative, talk about a new narrative, have new ideas, have Earth. So from your perspectives, your religious and spiritual perspectives, what do you think about that? What's our next step?
Okay, start with assumption, in my opinion, is relative and subjective. Depends very much on one's belief. Of course, from religious point of view, depends very much on our religious belief. There will be different assumption between the belief that there is a creator to the universe to an ideology or maybe a theology that nature is created by its own, naturalisms, for example. And also will differ very much the assumption, one's assumption, from the belief that there is life after life, the eschatological dimension of life, to the belief that the life is only here and now, secularisms and theology. The different will lead to the degree of responsibility. If we believe that there is life after life, and we need to be responsible to God, the Creator who created us, and then our life is full of responsibility to be good life, to be friendly to nature, to fulfill our very mission, to restore, to conserve the nature. So this kind of assumption depends very much on the belief. And that's why through this session, as I understood it, we are going to explore the ethical values from religions, but shared ethical values for conservation, for respectation of the nature. And this kind of assumption will lead us to new way of thinking to the universe. Without that, I don't believe that we may walk further to conserve our our nature, and the problem is still there because we are not a problem solver. Human beings will not be problem solvers to the environmental crisis, but rather we are only part of the problems, and maybe some of us is problem maker, and then the problems will continue, and maybe we need congresses, more congresses in our passive journey. I do suggest that we launch a journey for positive way in order to achieve our ultimate goal. That's the betterment of the betterment of human civilization. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Sally?
Mrs. Sianje?
Yes.
私は、まずもちろん彼がおっしゃったように宗教のフェイスで違いますけれど、人間はそれ以前に宗教を持つ以前に自分が生まれた本来のディバインスパークっていう神性というものが分からなければ、どんなに自分がいろんなものを求めても本来の解決にはならないと思います。
I think we all come from different cultures, religious backgrounds here, and beliefs. But even before that, there's something originally, fundamentally important that we all share. And that is the divine spark, the divine blueprint, the knowledge we have within our hearts, within our DNA, within ourselves, that we all share together. And I think that is one of the most important points that we all share together in moving forward in the creation of conservation as well as oneness and peace with nature.
それで人類は解決、要するに、一番大事なことは一人一人に自分は自己信頼、自分を信じてないところから常に未来を不安、恐怖し、そしてそのための欠乏感がどんな、止める国も貧しき国も止める人もあらゆる人類がみんな不安、恐怖、未来へのいつ欠乏するかというそのものにとらわれて、結局ネガティブ思考がこの人類に反映している。でもそれを変えることによって一人一人一人が変わらなければ本当の未来というものは、平和というものは作れない。そこ、
And as a solution, of course, I believe that we really need to believe in the power of ourselves, in the power of our divine spark that exists within ourselves, that original blueprint of knowledge we all have. And I believe that humanity is really affected by fear and anxiety of what's happening around in the world around us. No matter what country, culture, tradition, that we all get influenced by the fear and anxiety going around in the world. But we really cannot be attached to this vibration of fear and anxiety, that we need to rise above this and remember the divine spark, that original self is pure and we're all connected in oneness to nature, and to really overcome the negative mindset that humanity has created.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, Pulani, go ahead, and then Peter, I would love to have you make a comment as well, and then we'll close.
Am I on? Or I have a couple of things to say about that. And from a Hawaiian point of view, we don't start living when we're born. We live before that. And we continue to live after we die. And so it's a cycle thing. We have the whole idea of influencing the embryo before it is born. And maybe this is a female thing. I'm not sure. But I think that it is part of our culture, that we influence and I think that's actually everybody's culture. I think females, when they get pregnant, they sing songs, they talk nicely, you say all of those things. But, it's an influence on the embryo. And when the embryo is born, you feel like that influence continues. And I think that one of the things that we have to input into our embryo is this connection they have as a natural being. And they belong to the earth as soon as they're born. They don't only belong to the genealogy of their parents, but they belong to the genealogy of the place they live in. They belong to the genealogy of the things that they see happening around them constantly. And then as they grow up, they learn to become familiar with them, with these things around them, and become not only familiar, but become part of the family. And so you name everything. You give it a name. You name your dogs, you name your cats, you name your winds, you name your rains, you become familiar. You name your big trees in the backyard. You name trees in the forest. And this gives you a familial kind of connection. And that way, you can continue to keep them alive this way. They will always have a name. And it's like your genealogy. And so when they pass, doesn't mean that I forget who my grandparents is. My grandparents are still very much alive for me. And they're what we call aumakua. And in our tradition, they're the ones that stand up at the apex of the tradition. And so if we want to know even more about who we are and what we do, they're the ones we go to see, those grandparents that have passed. So what I'm saying is that if we want our world to be a world that is perfectly peaceful and everything acting like as it should, we need to start when the child is an embryo and give birth to children who will move in this direction, which means that everyone that's sitting in the audience are responsible for that birth, are responsible for what's being said here. And the way to spread it is that you start first. And not wait for a big organization to do it. You start first and take that responsibility.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Peter. Yes. Not very much, though.
Right. Very briefly, I do think that the confusion about why nature matters, how do we value nature, that lies at the heart of the conservation movement, has not helped us in this vital conversation with politics, with business, with agriculture, with fisheries. And to keep going on, if I may, as a male, on your birth theme, the conservation movement is a recently birthed thing. And picking up the point about language, if you take the development of medicine throughout human history, certainly in the last 2,000 years, the Christian church was at the heart of this enterprise, and we can live with a lot of the language, and a lot of the concepts like the care of the dying make very little economic sense, but they make all kinds of sense. There's this language at the heart of the medical enterprise that we can live with. And I do think there needs to be a renewal of language within the conservation movement that does justice to this value of nature that we've been hearing from actually all the speakers here. And I want to encourage my secular friends and their dear friends, and believe me, I belonged there, to not be afraid of this conversation, because we all have these values. We've just got to learn to be better articulate about them and to have a better inclusive discussion about them. And I'm just aware that these two competing theories, why does nature matter? It matters because we won't survive if we don't have it. And why does nature matter? Because it's intrinsically valuable. We've got to have a better conversation about that. and to do justice to those passionately held positions. And I do actually think that much of what you've heard here could be helpful because it's nuanced. And certainly within the Christian tradition, we understand creation is a gift to us, but we understand ourselves as within creation. In the Genesis account, we share a day of creation with all the other species. Humans don't have a unique day of creation. In Psalm 104, one of the earliest statements about biodiversity, in wisdom, God made them all. So we have a zero tolerance policy for human-induced extinction. I'm sorry. If in wisdom God made them all, how are we tolerating a 3,000 times the background rate of extinction because of our behavior? It's a blasphemy. It's not just wrong.
And we're going to end on that, and that is really a key question that everyone should take with them and contemplate. But I do want to add that IUCN is going to carry this dialogue forward. We're going to have interfaith conversations. We've been looking at different kinds of programs because this is a conversation actually that is overdue. And I'm so grateful, and everyone here is, obviously, that finally it has come to the fore. Everyone has a different perspective, a little bit different relationship with nature and in nature, and articulates it differently, a little differently. But the thread here is a love for creation. And the thread here is wanting to do what can be done to heal ourselves in relationship to healing the planet. So with that, I close, and please give these amazing minds and hearts a round of applause. Thank you.